Morning. So go.
Good morning. This is Frank Coyle. I'd like to welcome you to Pointed's advanced pay-per-click presentation. With me this morning. Okay, just not there. Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, it sounded like a slow talking robot.
Yeah, there's.
On my
Maybe
end.
you should call in, Frank, because for some reason the VoIP isn't working too well.
Okay, let me get the number.
But that means you have to hold it.
Yeah, that's Frank Coyle. To Pointed's Advanced Pay-Per-Click webinar. My name is Frank Coyle, Vice President of Sales at Pointed. With me today is Joe Weller, our Director of Client Managers. Joe, how's it going today?
Going great, Frank.
Good. Okay, well, we've got an exciting webinar for you. I'm just going to dive into some of the upfront logistics before we get started. For those of you not familiar with Pointed, we are a Seattle-based search engine marketing firm. We specialize in both pay-per-click and SEO. And we've been around the Seattle search business now for going on 7 years this year. In regards to some logistics about the webinar, this will be recorded and we'll send a link out to you by the end of the week. And as we go through this webinar, if you've got any questions, just use the question tool that you see to ask anything you'd like. Just one heads up before we get started. In May, towards the end of May, we'll be starting our first search engine marketing seminars at the Pointed offices. We'll be covering pay-per-click, SEO, landing page optimization. So look out for notification of that in the early part of May. Okay, now let's get on with today's show. We're talking about advanced pay-per-click, and specifically, we're covering the key areas that are involved in pay-per-click, going all the way from the keywords right through to the actual conversions into sales. A popular question we get asked these days is regarding expansion. Joe, you get this all the time from your clients. How do I get more? How do I get more clicks? What are you hearing?
Exactly. We have a number of clients that actually have been more aggressive during this time to capture market share. Budgets have actually increased for certain clients, and conversion volume has actually gone up during this time. And also, we have clients whose budgets have been reduced, but they still want to invest in this channel to get more, get as much volume as they can, given the limited budget.
Yeah, it's definitely been a period of aggressiveness for me as well. I've seen some clients increase their spend, their cost per click by about 25%, and they're also getting real good conversions as well. So anyway, we're going to talk about how you can expand. We're going to also focus on how to improve your conversions, and Joe's got a really good section on measurement and improvement through segmentation in Google Analytics. We're going to start off with expansion of keywords and different ways to look at the search networks outside of Google.com. I'll be taking you through how to plug the leaks in the sales funnel. That's always a good way of, just getting more for your dollar. Without increasing your spend, you can get more sales, more conversions. As I mentioned, Joe will take you through segmentation, and then we're going to look at some quick tips on how to improve keyword performance. Finally, Joe's going to give us some of the scoop he learned in his recent visit down to Google. He's got a number of tips that he'll mention throughout the presentation, but one in particular that I learned a lot about was Google Quality Score. So we will tackle that towards the end of the presentation. So starting with keyword expansion, when it comes to keywords, people typically think of tools such as Word Tracker or Google's keyword tool. But more recently, Google brought out what they call a search-based keyword tool, and you'll find this in your AdWords account under Campaign Summary, Tools, and then I have it circled right there. It's the search-based keyword tool. The great thing about this tool is it's Google's recommendations for your keyword, to expand your keyword, based on searches that have occurred on Google.com that they have seen. So their recommendations are, essentially it's coming from the horse's mouth. Joe, you and your guys have been using this a lot. Why don't you take us through what you guys have uncovered?
Great. So if you were to click on that link that Frank just circled, you'd see this page, and the first box is a website box. You can enter any one of your websites into that box, and then you can enter any phrases that you want to expand on, or in fact you can leave it blank if you'd like.
Hey Joe, I got to ask you something here. Can I put in my competitor site here?
I knew you'd ask that, Frank, but unfortunately you can't. It has to be one of your websites, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, good try. All right.
So then if you hit the Find Keywords button, what we're going to do is leave it blank, and we're going to hit the Find Keywords button. And if you just go to the next slide, you'll see the output looks like this. So we've blocked out the name of the website. We haven't entered any word or phrase in that box on the top. But what you can see here is that 1,183 keywords have been generated for this particular client. And it's like Frank said, Google's looking at the content of the actual website as well as the search queries on Google.com. So looking at the columns here, you can see that monthly searches, that's what we're currently sorting by. So we have broadband internet, connection speed. Those are the higher volume terms, and they go down from there in volume. You can see the competition to the right of that. So, high competition, low competition. There's a suggested bid here. Take it with a grain of salt. We probably all know that this is just a best guess from Google on where you can be in position, get you in position between 1 and 3. But you have to test it out to really know for sure. This is pretty interesting, the column to the right of the bid. It's the share of voice on both the paid and the organic side. So to look at that keyword broadband internet, this client's already getting 15% share of voice on the paid side. And even though this keyword isn't in the account, they are mapping from another keyword that's either broad or phrase match to this keyword. So when people type in broadband internet on Google, this company is showing up 15% of the time. And notice on the natural side, that's 0%. So you can see opportunities for both paid and organic using this information.
Joe, can I just jump in? One thing I also like here is that over on the left-hand side, is how they break or they categorize the keywords, those 1,183 keywords, into different buckets. So, for example, here that are related to Verizon, there are 36 keywords. I may want to go and build some ad groups and some targeted ads for that. So, yeah, this is a useful way of filtering the keyword suggestions that Google's provided.
Exactly, and the one thing that makes this tool great is these keywords, these 1,183 keywords, are not currently in this company's account. So looking for brand new keyword opportunities. Now you're probably wondering, should I add all these keywords blindly? And we would emphatically tell you no. You definitely do not want to add blindly. Just if Google's suggesting that these are relevant keywords, you're going to know if they're right for you. So if you hit the next the button up in the top, the advanced search button, you're able to filter your results more effectively, and we'll show you here on the next slide what we mean by that. So what we've done here is we've unchecked the high competition box. We have added the suggested bid to be below $3. So you can see that in the second to last row there. Then we've hit Find Keywords, and the output here is at the bottom. Notice the red arrow pointing to 198 keywords. So it went down from a much larger number to 198. And these keywords, what we're seeing here is a list of keywords that have lower competition and then lower bid levels. So we'd recommend taking this keyword list and testing it out to see if you get additional clicks and conversions. And you want to make sure you measure the lift of adding these keywords, because like we talked about in the previous slide, you're already showing up on some of these keywords through your broad and phrase match other keywords in the account. So you definitely want to make sure that adding keywords gives you the lift that you want. This is another tool that I'm guessing that the majority of people have used, probably use this more than the search-based keyword tool. This is Insights for Search, and I typically use it to track changes in search behavior over time on certain keywords. But here's another way to use a tool that maybe you haven't thought about yet. I'm suggesting that you leave the search terms box blank, and then you would use the filter function on the right-hand side. And something that came out this month was being able to filter at the metro level. So what we have here is we're looking at Seattle, Washington. We're looking at the last 30 days, and then we picked the home and garden category. We've hit the search button already, and the output below shows you the rising searches as well as the top searches. The top searches are the ones that are highest volume searches over the last 30 days. And on the right-hand side, the rising searches are the percentage, the keywords with the highest percentage increase over the last 30 days. So daffodil, 190% increase over the previous 30 days. It makes sense. I see a lot of flowers coming up in my yard, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if they should be planting daffodils right now, interested in lawn care, planting tomatoes, etc. So this is a very, very useful tool for people that are using geo-targeting in their PPC campaigns and want to get keyword ideas for their specific campaigns.
Hey, now, Joe, sometimes I see under the rising searches, instead of something like 190%, I'll see breakout. What does that mean?
That is 500% or more.
So those are those are like the ultra hot ones.
Yeah, definitely want to pay attention to those and see if you can take advantage of the surge in searches on those keywords. And remember that it's relative to the time period that you're looking at. All of these are, all the rising searches and the breakout. So if we were looking at 2007 and we saw a breakout keyword like daffodil, for example, then that would be at least a 500% increase over the previous year. So it's based on what you've selected above.
And what I've also, can I just jump in for a second,
Sure.
Joe? Where some of my clients have found this useful is to do this over a period of time, for example, 6 months or a year, so they can see trends in their market. They've found it really good for example, for some board presentations or upper management presentations. Let's suppose, sales weren't going well for a while. Well, instead of looking at your own business, which of course you should do, you might want to look at the overall market, and you could see, in fact, that, oh, hey, this whole business has actually been in decline. We can show the searches in Google have been dropping off for the last, maybe it happened last summer or something like that. So very useful for giving industry trends as well.
Exactly. So the last point that I want to leave you with is here, you can use these two tools for your PPC program. And the idea is after you've identified a category in a region and time period like we have here, you can pick the top volume searches and the rising searches. Once you have that list of a few keywords, then you can go back to that previous tool and enter those keywords into the search-based keyword tool, and it will come up with additional variations. Then you can take that list and add it to your AdWords and Yahoo and Ad Center accounts. See if you can get more volume.
Okay, great. Joe, that was a great overview of the new tools or utilizing the existing tools. We want to move now into the other networks. We're going to start with the content network. And this is, historically, this has been something that people have either loved or hated. But I'd say over the last year or so, things have got a lot better in content network. Google has provided better tools to place your ads to get a bit more control over it. So Joe, talk to us about some aggressive ways of going after the content network that you've been doing.
Sure. So here's an example content network page. I'm sure a lot of you have seen pages like this with different ads showing on the page, and you can see the arrows pointing to the sponsored links. So that is, we're showing on the content network via text ads. And just for the purposes of this slide, just like to assume that this page is really working for you. So imagine you're currently advertising on this page on the content network. The idea is, what can you do to stand out more, get more volume on a page that is working for you? So the idea is to utilize the display ad builder tool from Google. There are over 100 templates that you can use, and you can, if you had constraints on your design resources, you could use that tool for testing purposes to see if you can indeed get additional conversions on this page using a display ad. The trick that you need to know, and the thing you have to keep in mind, is you have to raise your bids at least 3 times what you're currently paying on this particular site. And that basically means you need to outbid the 3 other competitors that are currently there. So it needs to be done on a page that is working for you. So the page needs to be, within your cost per conversion requirements, and you're gonna see higher cost per clicks, but hopefully you'll be able to, get more conversions, but stay within that target cost per conversion. Look at it as a test. Identify a handful of these pages. Notice I didn't say sites. About.com, you definitely wouldn't want to target just about.com. You can run a placement performance report in Google and identify specific domains, specific pages, on the about.com domain and other domains, and target those as well. Then definitely measure results before and after and see if it's worth continuing. And if not, then you can always go back to these text ads that have served you well.
Yeah, measuring and tracking content network is really important, and I just want to take you through an example of a prospect I met with a few months back. I did some analysis of them on the content network. And if you do this kind of analysis, you're going to uncover problem areas and areas where you can fix and drive up your CPA. So in this particular case, they were running on the content network. They were spending around 10 grand, they had 295 conversions and $34 CPA. When we went into the placement performance report within Google AdWords reporting, we were able to see that actually those 295 conversions just came from a handful of sites, and that was only costing us $1,851. So the recommendation then obviously was to turn off those non-performing sites. And you can do that within Google for the content network. You can exclude sites that just aren't converting for you. So when you go into the content network, if you're about to go back in again, make sure you're measuring and tracking everything that's going on there. Joe, you've got another tip for the content network as a way to measure performance.
Right. So this is just an idea to think about next time you exclude sites. Oftentimes, in years past, I've excluded sites, I've added negatives. It applies to that action as well. And over the course of the year, you might know that you've taken these actions, but have you really kept track of it? So this is what I've been doing lately for my clients, is keeping track of the sites that I've excluded and the cost savings that we've seen on a monthly basis. So you can see at the bottom here what I'm talking about, the number of sites, cost savings, and I list out the specific sites just so I can go back and look for themes on the types of sites that we're showing on that aren't working well for us. I can speak from personal experience that this type of information works very well when you're doing a year-over-year recap to senior management. Whenever you can talk about cost savings and tie it back to actions that you've taken, it works really well for senior managers. There is one thing I wanted to point out. We'll get into it later, but it's the park domain sites. We have a slide coming up, and just note that I'm keeping track of these poor performing sites as well, and we'll get to that. I'm not sure which slide that is, but we'll talk more about that particular site.
Okay, moving on now from the content network, we want to talk now about the search partner network. As many of you know, when you advertise on Google, you automatically get Google Search and Google Search Partners, and these search partners include the likes of Ask, AOL, Earthlink, CompuServe, etc., or Business.com. You can uncheck search partners, but if you choose search partners exclusively, well, actually you can. If you try to select search partners, you always get Google.com, and that's a problem because you can't separate your bids, and it's hard to know whether a specific network is working well for you or not. So when you go into your Google AdWords campaign summary, what Google does is it actually breaks results by those different channels. So for example, here you can see that it's broken out for this campaign, which I've blanked out. It gives you the results for Google, search partners, and content. And obviously I can go into the content network and the Google.com campaigns and make adjustments in there to control it. However, with search partners, all I get is one lump number. And in this particular case, I'm spending almost $600 out of a total of $2,100. So that's probably somewhere around 25 to 30% of my spend is in a black hole. I don't know who. I know it's working, but I don't know which of those networks is working. It raises a question we get often from clients, which is, can I go directly into Ask.com or can I go directly into Business.com? And it's almost like taking a step in the dark unless you know whether they're being successful. And within AdWords, you don't have that information. However, you do have that ability to get insight from within Google Analytics. I want you to ignore the data on the top for a second and just focus on what's on the left-hand side. And what you'll see with this filter that we've set up in Google Analytics is we get a list of the traffic sources and how they performed. And in particular, I've broken out or I've highlighted Ask, AOL, and Business.com. And then I can go across each of these and see how they performed for the different goals I had. I had a goal for people calling for a demo. You see that I didn't get anybody to ask. It worked really well for AOL. It worked really well for Business.com. Similarly, if I went to the complaint demo, it worked fairly well for Ask, didn't work for AOL, worked really well for Business.com. With this kind of information, I can now make an intelligent decision before I move into Business.com or AOL or Ask. So when I go in there, I know what kind of goals I want to set up, and more importantly, what kind of goals I don't want to set up. Now, a second ago, Joe mentioned part domains. So let's explain what they are. You've probably done a search on Google and ended up on a site like this. It's just a listing of different links. These are kind of like the bottom feeders of the internet. The person who puts this site together actually makes money when you click on it. Now, unfortunately for you, the advertiser, let's suppose you're Scottrade. When somebody clicks on this, this is one of your Google ads. For example, this is like a content network ad, and you would have to pay for this. Well, this isn't necessarily the kind of page you want to be on. So the question is, well, what do you do about it, and how can you control whether you're shown there or not? So, Joe, you've done some work on this. Tell me how you approach this.
Right. So what we're looking at here is a site and category exclusion tool in AdWords, and the red boxes below show that for this particular client, park domains in this campaign are costing $1,583 for one conversion and a very, very high cost per conversion. So what we're able to do using this tool is block these types of sites from showing on both the content and the search network. So it's very, very important that you take a look at how your campaigns are performing on park domains, because it can really add up if you don't watch it. This is the only page type on the search network that you can exclude, so I definitely take advantage of it. And sometimes it works. We've seen it work in branded campaigns where people are looking for a particular company and there'll be a misspell or there'll be some other type of page, and it will work because the intent matches a little more closely. So it does work, but most of the time we see poor performance. Now the way to get to it is in the Tools section. You click on Site and Category Exclusion within AdWords, and then that drop down there, we've blocked out the campaign name, but you can go campaign by campaign, and there will be updated information below in the Page Types tab here. And you can also change your date range. You can go back, 6 months. You can go back a year. You can look at the last 7 days. So it's a very, very good tool that if you haven't looked at, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. And think of it as a way to save money in areas that aren't working and move that money to the areas that are working better for you.
Excellent, thanks, Joe. So that's a summary, just to summarize our expansion strategy. We talked about the new search-based keyword tool within Google, well worth checking out. We also looked into Google Insights, into how you can go further into the searches, specifically with the new Metro search capability or Metro filter capability in Insights. And when you want to expand into the search partners, you now have a method of tracking which ones are performing before you go in there directly. Let's move into the second section of the presentation or the webinar this morning, which is the sales funnel. The sales funnel is a great way, if you can really focus on the sales funnel, it's a great way to start getting more conversions pretty quickly. Oftentimes we find it's not the landing page that's although landing pages are the problem, it's not the only problem. And it's best to think of this as a whole process, going from that landing page through to the final activity that you've defined as being your conversion. What we'll do is we'll show you how to set up goals within Google Analytics, which will help you visualize the sales funnel and then identify problem areas, and then also see where the process itself is broken. Now here's an example of a sales funnel we've set up in Google Analytics. It takes you through all the steps, step 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are involved in this process when the user first comes into the landing page. Going from the top to the bottom here, this tells you that 3,400 people, actually 3,470 people came into this landing page through pay-per-click. 2,351 actually leaked out. They did not move forward. Over 1,100 moved forward into step 2. From there, 690 to step 3, and then finally 279. So 279 out of our original 3,470 actually converted. So when you see that data, then the question is, okay, go through each of these steps and find the leak points. Now, Google does give you this information on the right-hand side, which can be very helpful in identifying the leaks. For example, now I've had to blank things out, but you'll see here that there were 338 exits on this link. So there was a link on the page, and if you go back to your page and search for that link, then you can, I'd probably recommend getting rid of it because it's taking people off your page. Similarly, as you go down each step, whether into the second step, and this could be where you're trying to capture some form information, we have some drop-off, and again, you just look for the links that are dropping off, that are causing the drop-off, close them off, and then you're going to find your conversions are getting stronger. What I like to think of, my landing page and my sales funnel as being like a desert island. You've got the person stranded there. There's no way off except on your boat. So think of that mentality. Don't let people out unless they're doing what you want them to do, and then you're going to get a much higher conversion rate. I want to talk about a couple of other ways of plugging page leaks in the funnel. One is I'm sure familiar to many of you, and that's form field drop-off. Usually what happens is the sales guys want a lot more information in the form fields. They want name, address, phone number, company, how you found us, etc. I mean, I've seen some forms with 12 fields, and it's not surprising that they're not being filled out. It's just too much information. At the other end of the spectrum, you get some marketers who will only want to capture an email address. So it's probably somewhere in between to keep both parties happy, but the main thing is finding out where that drop-off occurred, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Another thing that's really useful is figuring out what people are clicking on in your website and also how they're interacting with it. Google Analytics has a site overlay tool which will let you look at a web page and show the percentage of clicks by link. So if you've got 3 or 4 links in your page, you'll see what percentage of the clicks were for each of those links. That's a great way of visualizing what's going on. Unfortunately, the Google Analytics overlay doesn't work consistently for my liking, and so I use a couple of other tools. One is called Crazy Egg, and the other one is called ClickTail. They both provide other functionality, which I'll get into. The first thing we want to do is get into the form field, and Joe, this is a favorite one of yours, so why don't you take us through what you got here?
Sure. So what we're looking at on the left-hand side, I shrunk it so you could see the whole funnel, and basically this is one single page, and it is 7 form fields, starting with 6 or 7, so first name, last name, country, etc. And if we use the magnifying glass to zoom in that area at the bottom, over on the right-hand side, you can now see that we're zooming in on phone number and email address. And the point of having this set up is we now know, we have a better idea of why or where people are dropping off a particular page. The previous slide that Frank took you through showed page, it was different pages and drop off by page. This is one level deeper. We know that people are dropping off when they enter their email address, or before entering that, rather. So then you think, okay, so we could move our privacy policy closer to that area, say that your email, your information will not be shared with anybody. We can put customer testimonials closer, like physically closer to that area, to try to build up the credibility and make people feel more comfortable about entering that personal information in. So it's just one more tool to understand the behavior of your customers.
Yeah, and this is a good one because I think filling out forms is probably the biggest reason for people dropping out of a sales funnel. So use the tools you have to track this. Now I mentioned that a couple of other tools. One was called Crazy Egg, and the other one is called ClickTail. What Crazy Egg is really good at doing is tracking the clicks on your page in a much more reliable and visual way than Google Analytics site overlay does. Each of the little buttons I have on here with a plus, well actually I don't have on here, but Crazy Egg has on here, when you click on those, it tells you the number of clicks that have occurred for this particular page. So here, if I clicked on this red button for RSS Newsfeed, it tells me there were 170 clicks there. This is great when maybe you're putting up a new landing page and you're changing, say, the color of buttons. Well, by having this on there, you can see real time just how well a change is being made. You might find after an hour nobody's clicked on that button, so you can swap it back to the color it was before. You name it. A really good tool for giving this insight. The nice thing about Crazy Egg is that there is a free version, I use a $9 a month version, and it's all based on the number of clicks per month. So $9 is very easy, and all you do is drop the JavaScript on your landing page or pages to track it. ClickTail is another tool. It also does tracking like Crazy Egg, but what I like about it is it enables you to watch movies of your web visitors. So you can see everything they're doing on your website. Again, it's just a piece of Java code, but with that information, you can then start making good landing page design changes or sales funnel process changes as a result. They also provide heat maps showing where most of the activity is. you might, for example, have designed a page where a lot of the important information is beneath the fold, and yet you may see from the heat map that nobody moves below the fold, or if they do, nobody reaches the bottom of the page where you might have some information. So a real good tool. It's more expensive than Crazy Egg, but certainly worth testing out. And each of these, I believe, is a monthly subscription, so you could try it once, get the information for your, refine your landing page or your sales funnel, and then move on. ClickTail also does a really good job in form analytics, so both these tools are well worth a look. So just to summarize, for your sales funnel, focus on plugging those leaks. Use the Google Analytics tools to visualize the goals, and then just systematically go through and knock out, or rather plug those leaks, and you're going to see your conversions take a huge jump. All right, now we're moving on to a real good section. This is going to be from Joe. He's knows an awful lot about Google Analytics. So Joe, take us into segmentation for us.
Sure. So what we're looking at here is, a lot of choices that we have to understand our visitors a little bit better. We have the medium. So are your visitors coming from PPC, organic, or are they being referred from another site? We have the source, so specific, Google, Yahoo, Ask.com, purchase behavior, purchasers versus non-purchasers, and then behavior once visitors get on your site. So page views, using a site search function, new versus returning, etc. The thing about segmentation that I've learned is that you definitely want to have tunnel vision when you're going through this exercise. It's very easy to get distracted. So for the purposes of today, we're going to look at everything that's been circled here. We're going to look at PPC visitors that came from Google that have purchased, and we're going to look at these behaviors here. So if we go to the next slide, I can show you where you can, all analytics tools offer segmentation. We're looking at Google Analytics here, and the top part of the page, you can see that we have default segments. This is for people that haven't tried this tool out yet. So you can start off with the default segments and look at paid traffic versus non-paid traffic versus direct. And if you check those boxes, anytime you run a report, you're going to see those segments show up. Then if you want to get try out some customization, you can actually do what I've done here, and I've created 3 segments that are on the right-hand side. The quick PPC buyers that have originated from PPC, from a paid search ad, and purchased in under 2 minutes. Slow PPC buyers, same source, except it took them over an hour to purchase. And then the average buyer that's somewhere in between those two. If you hit the apply button from those in that green box, you'll see below, here's an example report that is a new versus returning visitor report. This is just one example report, and if you you notice that those segments have been added to the report, and as you go through Google Analytics, you'll see the same thing. So you can see the difference in behavior between these 3 segments. If you didn't have the segments, then it would just be PPC all rolled into one, and you wouldn't be able to spot differences. So what I've done is I've gone through a couple different reports, and I wanted to take you through what I've found. I mean, before I do that, I wanted to mention that when you create new segments, it works on historical data, and that's very important to know, because I know a lot of you have probably created separate profiles for paid traffic only, and you have to wait for data to come in. Well, you don't have to do it for this. It's very, very powerful. You can create segments, and it works on data that you've had in the account for a long time. And then we're not going to have time to get into or show an example of this, but when you create segments, you can hit a test button, and it will tell you how many of your visitors fall into that segment. And if you pick too many if statements, for example, this visitor needs to come from Minneapolis, they need to buy within 5 minutes and they need to click on 25 pages, that's an example, then you're probably not going to get a lot of visitors in that segment, and the tool will tell you when it makes sense to scale back on the number of variables in your segmentation. So if we move on to the next slide, I wanted to show you what I found by using these 3 segments: quick buyers, slow buyers, average buyers, and those behaviors that we talked about on the previous page. For the number of pages viewed, we found that the average PPC buyers looked at 25 pages, and that was a big surprise for us. And they'd spent 15 minutes on the site, and that was over 3 times the average of all visitors. And one thing, it's good to compare results so it's relative performance. So it's not just these isolated numbers. The fact that we're 3 times the site average on the paid side is much more meaningful than just giving out the raw numbers. Site search behavior, so that's when people go to your site and they use the search box on your site to find what they're looking for. The slow PPC buyers and the average PPC buyers use that function over 2 times the site average. So you could then come up with additional questions such as, why are my PPC visitors using this function more than the average visitor? Are they not finding what they're looking for, etc.? New versus returning. We found out that there were no new quick PPC buyers, so that all buyers that purchased in under 2 minutes were return visitors. The slow PPC buyers, 80% of those were return visitors as well, and even the average PPC buyers, the majority, are return visitors. And if we didn't have these segments set up, then we would only see probably that 60%, because the average PPC buyers have the most volume, and we wouldn't be able to see the nuances in the data as well. But now that we have these segments, we can ask different questions based on these findings. Time of day is pretty interesting, but it makes a lot of sense that the peak is earlier for the sales peak is earlier for the quick buyers at 1 p.m. and then 2 p.m. for the average buyers and 3 p.m. for the slow buyers. So there's things that you can think about in terms of day parting, bidding higher in certain times of the day. One idea was coming up with a chat, live chat box during that time when we know that people are on the site and they want to purchase. And then the last thing I wanted to show is that we did not see any difference in performance from a geographic standpoint. And you're probably wondering why I put this here, and I put it here just because it's important to note when you have not found anything, that there are no differences that we've seen in geography. And that will prevent us from asking the same question in 6 months about geographic differences between your PPC segments. So I hope what I've done here is helped you to think about how you can use segmentation to come up with better questions, to go back to your sales team, to go back to your marketing folks, to go back to your management team who maybe don't know all the details of PPC. Maybe they're not as well versed on analytics as you are, but you can have a discussion here that's not about the technical aspects. It's more about the behaviors of your customers. And I think it can be a much more meaningful discussion that you'll have with your team.
Hey, thanks, Joe. That was a great section there. What we want to do now is move on to a variety of tips on how to improve keyword performance. Let's see. Let's start off at the beginning here. One of the most important things you need to have in place is conversion tracking before you can really make some significant advances with your keyword performance. Whether that tracking is for sales or a white paper or a webinar, you just want to identify what is important to you and a sort of value for it. What I typically like to do is perform both a conversion analysis and a match type analysis. So let's talk first of all about the conversions. What I found with, and I think, Joe, you're pretty much the same, is that when we look at keyword performance, you can really break it into sort of a 5% versus 95% buckets. So 5% of your keywords are responsible for 95% of your conversions. So the question is, well, what do you do about the 5%? How do you make those better? And also, what do you do about the 95%? Do you just switch them off? Do you pause them? So let's look at a couple of things here. Here's an example from a prospective client I spoke to. You'll see on the top right-hand side there, actually the top 6 keywords were responsible for 50% of the conversions. So once you have that information, you need to do a couple of things. First of all, you need to look at the CPAs and see whether they're in the right path or not. And just going down this right-hand side, most of them were, but there was one that was really standing out. So that was a red flag. But again, because I was able to analyze this at keyword level, then I can make some good go-forward decisions. The other thing I want to do is, if these keywords are distinct, then I want to break them into separate landing pages. Because my guess is this particular prospect had everything going into the one page. And I know that if all of these are going into the one page, that if I can build unique landing pages for them, then I can get even better results. In fact, that might be the reason one of them had a CPA of 92, was because the page wasn't unique enough for the searcher. But nevertheless, it did provide a lot of conversions. With regards to the remaining 95%, I do a couple of things before I consider pausing. I'll look at bid prices, and I'll also look at positions. I might find, for example, that there's a lot of exact phrases or the exact or phrase matches that are way down the page, maybe in positions 7, 8, 9, and by moving them up, I may be able to get them into a position that converts. Alternatively, I might find there's a lot of broad terms up in the 1 or 2 position, and those need to go down lower in the page to get a CPA that works. Another thing to consider is it might not be the landing page, it might not be the keyword or the ads, but it might be the landing page itself. So don't be hasty to switch off words. Look at the prices, look at the positions, and then look to see what you can do in that landing page. And I encourage you to think not just of a landing page, but multiple landing pages representing the different buckets that your keywords break into. Another bit of analysis I like to do is take a quick glance at the match types. I came across this case with, I think it was the same prospective client, and I looked at the breakdown of exact, phrase, and broad, and I found that of the 2,586 keywords, only 8 were exact, 17 phrase, and 2,500 were broad. And you can just see the corresponding CPs. This is for a $39 product. These guys were getting killed. Once you get this quick analysis done, then obviously this is an area to attack. It could very well be that you're going to change some of those broads into exact or phrase, or you might end up turning them off. I would expect you'll have a lot more exacts and a lot more phrases by the time you're done with this. But do this. It's very quick. It's very easy. And it's going to give you insights that you can take action on right away. Now, Joe, you've got a tip on negatives.
Right. So just wanted to take you through an example. This is for one of our B2B clients. We noticed a keyword that wasn't performing well, and you can see the keyword there, incident reporting. The previous 30-day period data is provided. So it spent $700, 4 conversions, had a $174 CPA. We used a Google Analytics raw query report, which is a report that we use to pull all the search queries that map to the keywords that we're bidding on, and it complements the Google search query reporting that you can get in the AdWords interface. The one thing that this Google Analytics filter does is it will capture the low volume one-off queries, whereas the AdWords search query report will bucket that into something called other unique queries. So anyway, that's kind of besides the point here. I wanted to show you what this report looks like. here's the keyword on the left-hand side that we're bidding on, incident reporting, and in parentheses are the actual queries that people are typing in. Some of them are on target, some of them are way off target. So this particular client, there's, those are the keywords that are okay, and here are all the keywords that are not relevant to what they're offering. Nothing about highways or accidents, anything like that. It's a software company. So what we did with this data was we totaled up the number of visits, and we were able to calculate a total cost for cost savings in removing these keywords. The next month, we saw a drastic drop in cost, a drop in CPA, and the conversion volume stayed roughly the same. We actually had one more conversion. So this is just one example of a keyword that wasn't working, and we were able to get it to work. And some of you might be saying, well, we're only talking about a couple $100, Joe, but this is kind of what it's all about. It's finding these little little actions that you can take, and over time it's going to turn into meaningful results as long as you stay diligent to this type of activity.
Joe, we're coming now to the final part. This was
okay.
The famous quality score. I mean, I know there have been a lot of theories on this ever since it was introduced, but you heard it right from the horse's mouth just a couple of weeks ago when you were down at Google. So what did you find out?
Right. So on the left-hand side, you'll see account, keyword, and ad. And in parentheses, I have click-through rate. And then the first bullet point on the right-hand side, click-through rate is most important. So what I'm trying to say is it's all about click-through rate. I know that there are other relevancy factors, but it was very clear from the gentleman at Google that presented, who works under Fred Valles, said that click-through rate is the most important, and it's the interplay between these three elements: the account click-through rate, so current and historical, the keyword click-through rate, current and historical as well, and then the ad click-through rate as it relates to the keyword and the account. And that ad copy includes the display URL, so whatever is visible in that ad. So the things that aren't important for quality score this was verified on my last trip to Google, was that the content of the landing page is not a factor in the quality score. And then even having the keyword in the ad text is not a factor. Now those 2 points here will probably help click-through rate, but if the click-through rate isn't there and if the performance isn't there, then it's not going to improve the quality score just by matching the ad text, the keyword to the ad text, and making sure the landing page has the keyword in it. So it's really about the behavior and the interplay between those three elements. Here's one thing that we do. I'm not gonna claim to have all the answers on quality score, but one thing that I can do here is I can benchmark performance, and I can figure out for myself how my account is doing, and I can make some educated guesses about the impact of click-through rate on quality score. So I'll show you. We'll build this slide here. You can see at the very top we have average account quality score. You can keep track of that as frequently as you'd like. It's just up to you to run the reports. You can't go into Google right now and run a January quality score report because it's real time. Just like max bid, you can't look at historical max bids in Google. You need to run those reports yourself. So this shows 3 months, and we're seeing a slight improvement in quality score. We're seeing we've also calculated the number of, or added the number of keywords in each bucket from 1 to 10. And for example here, quality score number 7, we're seeing an increase over these 3 months in the number of 7 quality score keywords. We've added the google.com click-through rate. And notice I'm saying google.com, not just overall search. That's because quality score it's all about google.com behavior. It's not about the search partners. And in AdWords, we didn't touch on this in today's presentation, but you can run separate reports, get all the detailed information from google.com as well as the search partner. So we've stripped out all the search partner data, and typically we'll see a lower click-through rate with the search partner. So we've seen an increase in click-through rate on google.com. During the same time period, we've seen an increase in average account quality score. Then the last thing I wanted to show you was keeping track of the number of impressions on keywords with 0 clicks. Now, this metric has flown under my radar, I have to admit, because it's not costing us anything. It's not costing our clients because there's no clicks. But what these impressions do is harm your account average quality score. So what I'm proposing here is keeping track of the number of impressions that you're seeing on these keywords that have 0 clicks, and then putting it in relative, comparing it to the total number of search impressions, just so you can keep an eye on it. If that percentage goes drastically up or down, then you can take appropriate action, such as turning off those keywords, deleting them, or pausing them, to make sure that account quality score stays on, account click-through rate rather, stays under control.
Well, Joe, hey, thanks for that. You've certainly cleared up some of the misconceptions I had on quality score. This is a lot clearer, so it's all about click-through rate.
Yeah, exactly. And when something that comes to mind is when when somebody on your team that maybe doesn't know search as well as you do wants you to blindly add thousands of keywords to an account and just say, well, we're going to keep our bids low, it's not going to hurt anything, that you can go back to them and say, this actually can have negative consequences, and here are some of the reasons why. And then also when you're doing ad testing, you might want to think about either rotating evenly or optimizing. So if you're going to rotate evenly, just know that you might take a hit on click-through rate, and that could hurt your overall quality score. So that could result in more limited ad copy testing with shorter time periods to get results. Just a couple additional things to keep in mind.
All right. Well, hey, Joe, thanks. Appreciate your participation this morning. We have, I'm just going to summarize things before we take a couple of questions. Look, when you're looking to expand your campaigns, look at the new Google search tool. Go after the leaks in your sales funnel, and that will definitely help you increasing the number of conversions and sales. Joe had a really good section there on segmentation, and it might be worth listening to the webinar, just playing it back to see exactly what Joe did there, but really good insights helping you dive deep into the information. And then, we had a handful of tips there on ways to save money with keyword performance, going from negatives to looking at match types, etc. Okay, I think that's about it for today, Joe. We've just got a couple of questions that come in. Let me pass one over to you. With regards to the quality score, do you recommend deleting or pausing keywords that aren't performing?
Yeah, it actually doesn't make any difference, because you can't erase the historical performance of a keyword. So pausing or deleting, they will accomplish the same thing. You'll not gather any additional data on that keyword. So essentially you'll stop the poor quality from happening, but you can't erase the poor quality by deleting a keyword.
Okay. I just got a question in, do we have any update on MSN? I can address that one. MSN is in I think they may have actually launched it now, or they're in late beta on an AdWords editor type desktop tool. I've been using it for a while. It's a very good tool. I'd say it's about 80-85% of what AdWords Editor is. Of course, it's a big leap forward to trying to do all this stuff in Excel. So look out for it. Definitely worth using. Joe, Yahoo, any update there?
Yeah, we didn't have time to. Yeah, there's a lot of content. We focus definitely on Google, but the things on Yahoo that come to mind are we've seen better performance on the Yahoo Content Network, and our reps tell us that the algorithm has been updated, and we've noticed lower CPAs and better volume, just better quality from the content network. And in the past, it just night and day compared to the past. There's also a new user interface that allows for more advanced targeting, geo-targeting. There's some demographic targeting that you can do, and that I think has rolled off of beta and is available to everyone as well. The last thing about Yahoo is the assist information. I'm assuming most of you have other third-party tools that are able to pull in assists and that type of information that influences the actual conversion. If not, you can use that tool to identify the keywords that are contributing to conversions from other keywords, and then you can bid higher on those assisting terms on all the engines. And a metric that we have looked at, that I've looked at for clients, is it's a assist to conversion ratio. So when that ratio gets higher, you can have a higher allowable bid and therefore a higher allowable cost per conversion, knowing that you're going to make it up from the conversions that come in on other keywords. And those are just a few things that come to mind for Yahoo.
Perfect. Well, hey, Joe, thanks very much for your participation this morning. It was great advice there. I think that's a wrap. Anyone listening, this webinar is recorded, and a link to it will be sent out to you. If you have any questions, feel free to email Joe or myself, frankc@pointit.com or joew@pointit.com. Thanks very much, and we look forward to talking with you next month. And just keep in mind, we will be having the Pointit seminars coming up. Look out for an email on those in the early part of May. Thanks very much.